Hey guys, tonight we're going to slow things down and sit with a story that matters. Marcus Tate, a 27-year-old black graduate student, carries the weight of his dreams in linguistics while serving tables at an Atlanta country club. Mocked for his lowly role, he faces a powerful CEO whose words cut deeper than she knows. This is a tale of quiet strength where dignity meets prejudice, and one moment changes everything. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe, but only if stories like this truly move you. Comment your city and the time you are watching. Now close your eyes or don't, it's your choice. Either way, you're about to witness something real. The Atlanta sun spills gold across the Fairhaven Country Club, its veranda draped in ivy and privilege. Marcus Tate balances a tray of sparkling water, his black uniform, crisp despite the late spring heat. His wire-rimmed glasses catch a glint of light as he weaves through tables where linen suits and silk dresses signal wealth that hums like a low current. At 27, Marcus is no stranger to these rooms, where power is measured in handshakes and half-smiles. A master's candidate in linguistics at Emory University, he works weekends here to cover rent and textbooks, his thesis on cross-cultural syntax, a quiet pulse in his mind. His hands steady from years of note-taking and serving move with precision, but his eyes hold a depth that few notice. Today that depth feels heavier like a stone smoothed by a river's patient grind. At the long table under a cream-colored parasol, Cassandra Wells holds court. 50 with a platinum-streaked bob and a tailored blazer, she's the CEO of Vionic Solutions, a cybersecurity firm that dominates Atlanta's tech scene. Her laugh, sharp and practiced, cuts through the murmur of venture capitalists and startup founders around her. Every gesture, her manicured hand brushing a stray hair. The tilt of her chin projects control. She's built her empire on reading rooms, knowing when to charm and when to strike. Today her gaze lands on Marcus as he approaches, and something in her posture shifts like a hawk spotting movement in the grass. "Sparkling water, ma'am," Marcus says, his voice even placing a glass before Cassandra. His tone is professional, but there's a warmth in it, a trace of the kid who used to read dictionaries for fun in his Decatur apartment. Cassandra doesn't look up. She lets the silence stretch her fingers, tapping the table, each click a small assertion of dominance. The others, two investors, a logistics exec and a fintech consultant, glance at her waiting for her cue. Finally, she speaks, her voice light, but laced with venom. "Took you long enough. What you get lost between the kitchen and here." A chuckle ripples through the table, not at the joke, but at the power behind it. Marcus's jaw tightens, a flicker of tension, but he nods. "Apologies, ma'am. The bar had a brief delay." His words are measured, a shield against the sting. He turns to serve the next guest, but Cassandra's not done. "Hope you're faster with coffee than you are with water," she says, her smile thin. "Wouldn't want you slowing down the real work around here." The words land like a slap classist and edged with a racial undertone that's subtle but unmistakable in this polished southern space. Marcus feels the familiar ache, the one that comes from being reduced to his apron. It's not new growing up, black in Georgia. He's heard variations of this tone his whole life, from teachers who doubted his potential to bosses who assumed he'd settle for less. But here in this club where Atlanta's elite sip mimosas, it cuts deeper, a reminder of the gap between who he is and how he's seen. His fingers grip the tray a fraction tighter, but his face remains calm, a mask honed over years of navigating rooms like this. He steps back, blending into the rhythm of service, but the air feels charged. The other guests shift slightly, some uncomfortable, others amused. Cassandra leans back, satisfied, her eyes scanning the table for approval. She's used to moments like this, where a well-placed jab reinforces her place at the top. But Marcus, wiping a glass at the service station, feels a quiet resolve settle in his chest. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. The club's veranda hums with wealth, clinking crystal, the faint scent of citrus and jasmine, the soft laughter of deals being struck. Marcus moves through it, invisible to most his mind, half on his thesis, half on the next order. He's used to being underestimated, his intelligence tucked away like a folded note in his pocket. At Emory, his professors praise his work on linguistic frameworks, but here he's just the help. The contrast gnaws at him, not as anger, but as a slow, steady pressure like a river carving stone. Cassandra, meanwhile, thrives on control. Her company, Vionics, is a titan in Atlanta's tech boom, its contracts with banks and government agencies, a testament to her ruthlessness. She's climbed from a middle-class Marietta upbringing to this, a world of private clubs and private jets, by never letting anyone forget her power. Marcus to her is a prop, a chance to flex her authority to remind the table who commands the room. Her comment wasn't random, it was calculated to signal to her peers that she's untouchable even in small moments. But Marcus isn't invisible to everyone. At a nearby table, an older black woman, a retired professor dining with her daughter, watches him. Her name is Evelyn Harris, and she knows the weight of rooms like this. She sees the way Marcus carries himself, the quiet dignity in his posture, and it reminds her of her own battles in academia decades ago. She leans toward her daughter, whispering, "That young man's got something. You can tell by the way he doesn't flinch." Back at Cassandra's table, the conversation shifts to blockchain regulations, but her earlier jab lingers like a sour note. The fintech consultant, a German expat named Klaus Berger, scribbles something on a napkin and slides it to Cassandra. "A little puzzle," he says with a grin. "My team's been debating this phrasing for a contract. It's in German, doubt anyone here can crack it." Cassandra glances at the napkin, her lips curling. She sees an opportunity not to solve the puzzle, but to reinforce her narrative. "Hey, waiter!" she calls, her voice carrying just enough to draw eyes. Marcus turns his expression neutral. "Yes, ma'am," he says, stepping closer. Cassandra holds up the napkin, her smile sharp. "Think you can handle this? Or is German a bit above your pay grade?" The table laughs a low, uneasy sound. Marcus's eyes flicker to the napkin, then back to Cassandra. His heart beats faster, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. He knows this game, prove yourself or be dismissed. But he also knows something Cassandra doesn't. His mind is sharper than her assumptions. The veranda seems to hold its breath, the clink of glasses fading into the background. Marcus takes the napkin, his fingers steady, and reads the German text silently. It's a legal phrase, dense but familiar, the kind of syntax he's dissected in his studies. He could walk away, let Cassandra have her moment, but something in him resists. Not pride, but principle, the refusal to shrink when someone demands it. "I'll take a look," he says, his voice calm but firm. Cassandra raises an eyebrow, leaning back as if already savoring his failure. The other guests watch, some curious, others expectant. Evelyn at her table sets down her fork, her eyes locked on Marcus. The air is thick with anticipation, a moment poised on the edge of something larger. Marcus adjusts his glasses, his gaze steady, and begins to read. The Fairhaven Country Club's veranda pulses with the quiet arrogance of Atlanta's elite, its air heavy with jasmine and unspoken hierarchies. Marcus Tate stands at Cassandra Wells' table, the German note in his hand, its weight more than paper. The words dense legalistic dance in his mind, a puzzle he's trained to unravel. At 27, his linguistic studies at Emory have honed his ability to dissect language to find meaning where others see only chaos. But here under Cassandra's smirking gaze, the stakes are not academic. Her challenge, draped in a classist sneer and a subtle racial edge, is a gauntlet thrown to prove he belongs or to confirm he doesn't. Marcus's pulse quickens, but his face remains a calm mask, a skill forged in rooms where he's often the only black man present. Cassandra leans forward, her platinum bob catching the sunlight, her voice syrupy with mockery. "Go on then, enlighten us. Or is this too much for the coffee guy?" The table chuckles, a low ripple that grates against Marcus' skin. The fintech consultant Klaus Berger watches with a half smile, curious but detached, while the other guests, venture capitalists and a startup founder, lean in, sensing a spectacle. Marcus feels the familiar sting, the one that comes from being reduced to his apron, his intellect dismissed as irrelevant in this polished southern space. It's a tone he's known since childhood, when a teacher in Decatur told him he'd never amount to much despite his straight A's. But he doesn't flinch. His fingers trace the napkin's edge, grounding him. He reads the German again silently, his mind slicing through the syntax. It's a contract clause, poorly worded, the kind of ambiguity that could cost millions in court. He could simply translate and walk away, but something in Cassandra's eyes, a glint of certainty that he'll fail, stirs a quiet defiance. Not anger, but a refusal to be erased. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. "I need a moment," Marcus says, his voice steady, almost soft. Cassandra's smile widens, predatory. "Take your time. We wouldn't want you to strain yourself." The jab lands and a venture capitalist coughs into his mimosa, masking a laugh. Marcus steps back to the service station, the napkin still in hand, and adjusts his glasses. The club's hum clinking, crystal murmur deals fades as he focuses. He's not just translating. He's navigating a minefield where every word will be judged not for accuracy, but for what it says about his place in this room. At a nearby table, Evelyn Harris, the retired professor, watches intently. Her daughter Lena whispers, "He's not rattled." That's rare. Evelyn nods, her eyes narrowing. She knows this dance, decades in academia, taught her how to spot resilience in the face of dismissal. Marcus reminds her of a student she once mentored, a young woman who faced similar sneers and still rose to dean. Evelyn's fork rests on her plate, her attention fixed on the young man who carries himself like he's already won a battle no one else sees. Back at the table, Cassandra pivots to her guests, her voice bright but brittle. Let's not hold our breath. Some people are better suited to refills than riddles. The startup founder, a young woman named Priya, shifts uncomfortably, her fingers twisting a napkin. She's new to this circle, eager to impress Cassandra, but the cruelty in the air feels wrong. Klaus, the German consultant, scribbles another note, his expression unreadable. He slides it to Cassandra, who glances at it and laughs, a sharp performative sound. Oh, Klaus, you're wicked. Another test. Why not? Marcus returns the original napkin in hand, his posture unchanged. The table quiets, a collective inhale. Cassandra's eyes glint with anticipation, already scripting his failure in her mind. She's built Vionic solutions on moments like this, small power plays that remind everyone she's untouchable. Her rise from a Marietta strip mall to Atlanta's tech elite wasn't luck. It was strategy, and Marcus is just another pawn to move. But Marcus isn't playing her game. He clears his throat, his voice low but clear, like a professor addressing a seminar. The note is a contract clause about data sovereignty. He begins, his tone measured. It's in German, but the phrasing is sloppy. The verb ausliefern suggests delivery, but it's vague, legally risky. A better choice would be übermitteln for precision. He pauses, letting the words settle. The table is silent. The clink of glass is gone. Klaus straightens his eyebrows, lifting a flicker of respect in his eyes. Cassandra's smile falters just for a second, but she recovers, leaning back with a forced chuckle. Well, aren't you full of surprises? But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Can you even read the whole thing? The escalation is deliberate, a trap to push Marcus further, to make him stumble. The other guests exchange glances, sensing the shift. Priya's discomfort grows. She's seen Cassandra dismantle rivals in boardrooms, but this feels personal, almost cruel. Marcus doesn't take the bait. He nods almost imperceptibly and begins reading the German aloud, his pronunciation flawless, each syllable crisp. The words flow like a river, steady and unyielding, and when he switches to English, his translation is not just accurate, but elegant, refining the clause's intent with a scholar's precision. The table is a tableau of stunned faces. Klaus nods slowly, impressed. Priya's eyes widen, a mix of awe and unease. So while I disponibilize. Cassandra's fingers tighten around her glass, her knuckles pale. She hadn't expected this, not competence, not composure. Her control, so carefully curated, feels like sand slipping through her fingers. Marcus finishes, sets the napkin down, and meets her gaze. His eyes are steady, not defiant, but unyielding. Anything else, ma'am? He asks, his voice polite but laced with something unbreakable. Cassandra forces a smile, her voice tight. That's adequate. Back to your trays now. The dismissal is sharp, but it lands flat like a blade missing its mark. Marcus nods and walks away, his steps, even his tray, balanced as if nothing has happened. But something has. The air has shifted, a subtle realignment of power. The guests murmur, their voices low but urgent. Priya leans toward Klaus, whispering, "He's not just a server." Klaus nods, his pen tapping the table, already thinking of his firm's Atlanta office. In the kitchen, Marcus leans against a counter, exhaling slowly. His co-worker Javier, a lanky 20-something with a quick grin, raises an eyebrow. "You okay, man? Looked like she tried to eat you alive out there." Marcus wipes his glasses on his apron, a small grounding ritual. "She tried," he says, his voice quiet, "but I'm still standing." Javier laughs, but there's respect in it. "You're a damn ninja, Marcus." Bet she didn't see that coming. Outside, Cassandra redirects the conversation to mergers. Her tone forceful, but her guests aren't as engaged. Priya keeps glancing toward the kitchen where Marcus has disappeared. Evelyn, at her table, smiles faintly, her daughter catching her eye. "He's got it," Evelyn says softly, "the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout." The veranda hums on, but the rhythm is different now, the spotlight no longer Cassandra's alone. Marcus, refilling a pitcher, feels the weight of the moment settle. He's not triumphant, not yet, just steady like a river that knows its course. The Fairhaven Country Club's veranda shimmers under the Atlanta sun, its elegance a thin veneer over the tension simmering beneath. Marcus Tate moves through the brunch crowd, his tray steady, his wire-rimmed glasses catching fleeting glints of light. At 27, he's a master's candidate in linguistics, but here he's just the server, his intellect buried beneath the weight of his black apron. The memory of Cassandra Wells challenged the German note, her mocking smile lingers like a bruise, but Marcus keeps his face composed, his steps deliberate. The club's air, scented with citrus and wealth, feels heavier now, charged with the unspoken prejudice that followed him from her table. Each clink of crystal, each murmured deal reminds him of the gap between who he is and how he's seen. Cassandra at her table regains her stride, her platinum bob swaying as she pivots to a story about outsmarting a rival firm. At 50, she's built Vionic Solutions into a tech juggernaut through sheer will, her every word a calculated move to command the room. But her earlier jab at Marcus, laced with classism and a racial undertone, has left a ripple. The guest Klaus Berger, the German consultant, Priya, the startup founder, and two venture capitalists listen to her, but their attention wavers. Priya's eyes dart to Marcus as he refills water glasses, her discomfort growing. She's seen Cassandra's power plays before, but this one feels like a misstep, a crack in the CEO's flawless facade. Marcus, clearing plates, feels Cassandra's gaze on him sharp as a blade. She's not done. Her voice cuts through the table's chatter loud enough to carry. "Hey, server," she says, her tone dripping with false warmth. "Since you're so good with words, maybe you can settle a debate for us." Marcus turns his expression neutral, but his pulse spikes. The table quiets, eyes locking on him. Cassandra holds up a new napkin, this one with a scribbled phrase Klaus passed her. Klaus says it's a French idiom. Care to take a stab? Or is that above your expertise? Her smile is a trap, her words a deliberate echo of the earlier German challenge designed to push him further into the spotlight or into failure. The veranda seems to contract, the hum of wealth fading as all eyes turn to Marcus. He feels the weight of it, the assumption that he'll falter, that his place is to serve, not to shine. It's a familiar pressure, one he's carried since high school, when a guidance counselor suggested he aim lower than Emery. The sting is sharp, but Marcus doesn't let it show. His fingers brush the napkin as he takes it, his mind already dissecting the French. It's a legal phrase, not an idiom, and poorly constructed, the kind of error he's caught in his thesis work. He could walk away, let Cassandra have her moment, but something in her smirk, a certainty that he's less, anchors him to the spot. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. "I'll give it a look," Marcus says, his voice low, steady, like a professor calming a restless class. Cassandra leans back, her arms crossed, her eyes glinting with anticipation. "Don't keep us waiting," she says, her tone sharp enough to draw a chuckle from one of the venture capitalists. Priya shifts in her seat, her fingers twisting her napkin, her unease now a knot in her chest. Klaus watches Marcus closely, his earlier respect deepening, sensing something more than a server in the young man's poise. Marcus steps to the service station, the napkin in hand, and reads the French silently. It's a contract term about liability, ambiguous and risky, the kind of mistake that could unravel a deal. His mind races not with fear but with clarity, slicing through the syntax as he's done countless times in Emery's library. He's not just translating. He's proving something, not to Cassandra, but to himself. The club's rhythm, clinking glasses, soft laughter fades as he focuses, his glasses slipping slightly down his nose. He adjusts them, a small grounding gesture, and returns to the table. The phrase isn't an idiom, Marcus begins, his voice clear, unhurried. It's a French legal term for liability transfer. But it's vague. The verb engager implies obligation, but assumer would be clearer in this context. He reads the French aloud, his pronunciation precise, then offers a refined English translation, his words flowing with the elegance of a scholar. The table is silent, stunned. Klaus nods his pen, tapping the table, a faint smile forming. Priya's eyes widen, a mix of awe and relief. Cassandra's smile freezes, her knuckles whitening around her glass. She hadn't expected this again. Her control, so meticulously crafted, phrase at the edges. "Impressive," Cassandra says, her voice tight, almost a hiss. But let's not get carried away. Back to work, shall we? The dismissal is sharp, but it lands hollow like a bell cracked at its core. Marcus nods his eyes steady and walks away, his tray balanced, his steps unchanged. But the air has shifted again, a quiet realignment of respect. The guests murmur, their voices low but urgent. Priya leans toward Klaus, whispering, "He's brilliant." "Why is he here?" Klaus shrugs, but his eyes follow Marcus, already calculating. In the kitchen, Marcus leans against a stainless steel counter, his breath slow, deliberate. Javier, his coworker, tosses him a rag with a grin. "Man, you're making her look like she flunked English 101 out there." Marcus wipes his glasses, his fingers steady, but his chest tight, not trying to make her look anything he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just answering her questions." Javier laughs, shaking his head. "Yeah, and it's killing her. Keep it up, ninja." Outside, Cassandra redirects the conversation to AI regulations. Her tone forceful, but her guests are distracted. Priya keeps glancing at Marcus, who's now serving an elderly couple. His movements calm, almost serene. Evelyn Harris at her table watches him too, her eyes warm with recognition. She leans toward her daughter Lena and whispers, "He's carrying more than trays." That's a man who knows his worth. Lena nods, her gaze lingering on Marcus, seeing the quiet strength her mother described. The veranda's golden light softens as the brunch crowd thins, but the tension remains a current running beneath the surface. Marcus feels it, the weight of Cassandra's scrutiny, the curiosity of the guests, the silent support from Evelyn's table. He's not naive. He knows moments like this don't erase prejudice, don't rewrite the rules of rooms like this. But they crack the facade just enough to let light through. He refills a pitcher, his mind half on the French phrase, half on his thesis, a study of how language shapes power. The irony isn't lost on him. Cassandra, meanwhile, feels the shift and hates it. She's used to being the sun in every room, her presence pulling others into orbit. But Marcus, with his calm precision, has drawn eyes away from her, and that's a wound she can't ignore. She taps her spoon against her saucer, 3 sharp clicks, and leans toward Klaus. "He's got a good memory," she says, her voice low but pointed. But memory isn't judgment. He's still just the help. Klaus doesn't respond, his pen still tapping his mind elsewhere. Priya overhears and frowns her discomfort now, a quiet resolve to speak up later. Marcus, clearing a table, catches Evelyn's eye. She gives him a small nod, a gesture that feels like a lifeline. He returns it, his lips twitching into a faint smile. The moment is brief, but it steadies him, a reminder that not everyone measures worth by titles. The club hums on its rhythm. Altered the spotlight, no longer Cassandra's alone. Marcus adjusts his glasses, his gaze steady, and steps back into the flow, ready for whatever comes next. The Fairhaven Country Club's veranda glows under the late Atlanta sun, its ivy-draped columns casting long shadows across the flagstones. George Tower 27 moves through the brunch crowd with a tray of empty glasses, his black apron a stark contrast to the pastel linens around him. His wire-rimmed glasses catch the light, but his eyes hold a quiet fire kindled by the weight of Cassandra Wells' relentless scorn. The linguistics master's candidate has weathered her classist jabs, each laced with a racial edge, with a composure that belies the storm in his chest. Her challenges, first the German note, then the French, were traps to diminish him, but Marcus turned them into mirrors, reflecting her misjudgment. Now the air hums with a new tension, as if the club itself senses a reckoning. Cassandra 50 sits at her table, her platinum bob gleaming, her tailored blazer a shield of authority. As CEO of Vionic Solutions, she sculpted her world with precision, every word a chisel to carve her dominance. But Marcus's calm brilliance has chipped at her control, and the guests Klaus Berger, Priya, and the venture capitalists sense it. Their murmurs, once deferential, now carry a curious edge, their eyes flicking to Marcus as he clears plates. Cassandra's fingers tighten around her mimosa, her smile a brittle mask. She's not used to sharing the spotlight, especially not with a server she dismissed as beneath her. Her earlier taunts, "Stick to coffee," not contracts, echo in her mind now, a misstep she can't unmake. The brunch crowd thins, but the veranda's energy crackles a storm, gathering in the golden light. Cassandra leans toward Klaus, her voice low but sharp. "Let's settle this once and for all," she says, her eyes glinting with a mix of defiance and desperation. Klaus raises an eyebrow, intrigued, and hands her another napkin, this one with a scribbled note in Spanish, a complex legal phrase about cross-border data rights, deliberately obtuse. Cassandra seizes it, her smile predatory. One last test, she announces, her voice carrying across the table. Server, come here. The word server is a whip meant to snap Marcus back into place. Marcus turns his tray balanced, his expression unreadable. The veranda quiets, the clink of crystal fading as eyes lock on him. He steps to the table, his pulse steady, but his senses sharp like a scholar facing a final exam. Cassandra holds up the napkin, her tone dripping with false sweetness. Spanish this time. Think you can keep up, or is 3 languages too much for you? The challenge is a gauntlet, her last chance to reclaim the narrative. The guests lean in, Priya's discomfort now. A visible frown. Klaus's curiosity, a quiet intensity. Evelyn Harris at her nearby table sets down her glass, her eyes fixed on Marcus with a grandmother's pride. Marcus takes the napkin, his fingers brushing the paper, and reads the Spanish silently. It's a beast of a phrase layered with legal jargon, the kind of text he's dissected in his thesis on linguistic precision in contracts. He could refuse, walk away, but Cassandra's smirk a certainty that he'll crumble roots him to the spot. Not for pride, but for principle, he won't shrink when someone demands it. Some truths linger waiting to be unveiled. I'll try, Marcus says, his voice low, almost gentle, but with a steel that cuts through the air. Cassandra chuckles, leaning back. Try hard then. We're all waiting. The venture capitalists exchange glances, one muttering, "This is getting intense." Priya bites her lip, her hands clasped tightly. Marcus steps back to the service station, the napkin in hand, and adjusts his glasses, a ritual that steadies him. The Spanish unravels in his mind, each clause a thread he pulls apart with surgical precision. It's not just a translation, it's a contract clause with a fatal flaw, a vagueness that could unravel a multinational deal. He sees it clear as day and knows what's at stake. He returns to the table, the veranda holding its breath. Cassandra's eyes narrow, her smile a thin line, already scripting his failure. But Marcus doesn't falter. He clears his throat, his voice steady, resonant, like a professor commanding a lecture hall. The phrase is about data transfer across borders. He begins his words deliberate. It uses transmitir, but the context demands especificar to avoid ambiguity. Legally, it's a liability bomb waiting to explode. He reads the Spanish aloud, his pronunciation flawless, each syllable a hammer striking stone. Then in English, he refines the translation, correcting the clause with a clarity that makes Klaus gasp softly. You'd need a rewrite before signing this, Marcus adds, his tone matter-of-fact but unyielding. The table is a frozen tableau. Klaus straightens his pen, dropping to the table, his face alight with respect. Priya's eyes shine a mix of awe and vindication. The venture capitalists murmur, one whispering, "He's a damn genius." Cassandra's face is a mask of shock, her mouth slightly open, her glass trembling in her hand. The veranda seems to pulse, the golden light sharpening around Marcus, who stands tall, the napkin in hand, his gaze steady on Cassandra. Her authority, so meticulously built, shatters in the silence, her misjudgment laid bare. "Anything else, ma'am?" Marcus asks, his voice polite, but laced with an unshakable dignity. Cassandra blinks, her voice a rasp. "No, that's enough." The words are a surrender forced from her lips. Marcus nods, sets the napkin down, and walks away, his steps even, his tray balanced. The guests erupt into murmurs, their voices a tide washing over Cassandra's silence. Priya leans toward Klaus, whispering, "He just rewrote her entire narrative." Klaus nods, already pulling out his phone, typing a note to his firm's Atlanta office. Evelyn Harris at her table smiles broadly, her daughter Lena, whispering, "He did it. He really did it." In the kitchen, Marcus leans against the counter, his breath slow, his glasses fogging slightly from the heat. Javier, his coworker, claps him on the shoulder. "Man, you just dropped a bomb out there." She's shook. Marcus wipes his glasses, his fingers trembling just enough to betray the adrenaline. "Didn't mean to shake her," he says, his voice quiet. "Just answered the question." Javier grins, shaking his head. "Yeah, and you answered it like a king." Outside, Cassandra grips her glass, her knuckles white, her smile gone. The guests talk around her, but their words are distant, her control a memory. She tries to pivot, mentioning a new Vionics contract, but Priya cuts in, her voice soft but firm. "You know, Marcus could probably draft that contract better than half the room." The words sting, and Cassandra's jaw tightens, her eyes darting to Marcus, who's now serving an elderly couple with the same calm grace. The veranda's light shifts, casting her in shadow, while Marcus seems to glow, a man who's claimed his place without raising his voice. Evelyn watches from her table, her eyes warm with pride. She leans toward Lena, whispering, "That's how you change a room, not with noise, but with truth." The club hums on its rhythm, forever altered the spotlight. Now Marcus is earned not by force, but by the quiet power of being undeniable. Cassandra feels it, a wound she can't spin, and for the first time she wonders what it costs to underestimate someone who refuses to bend. The Fairhaven Country Club's veranda bathes in the soft amber of a fading Atlanta sunset, its ivy-draped columns now shadowed as if bowing to the day's revelations. Biosatata 27 moves through the thinning brunch crowd, his black apron folded over his arm, his wire-rimmed glasses glinting faintly. The weight of his triumph, silencing Cassandra Wells with a flawless Spanish translation, settles in his chest, not as pride, but as a quiet certainty, like a river finding its course. His linguistics masters at Emory, once a distant dream, feels closer. Now its promise no longer dimmed by the apron he wears. The club's air, once thick with prejudice, carries a new current, one Marcus has shifted with nothing but his mind and his refusal to shrink. Cassandra 50 sits at her table, her platinum bob still perfect, but her presence diminished. The CEO of Vionic Solutions, she's built her empire on control, her every gesture a command. But Marcus's calm brilliance has unraveled her narrative, leaving her exposed. The guests, Klaus Berger, Priya, and the venture capitalists, speak in low tones, their eyes no longer fixed on her, but on Marcus, who clears a final table with steady hands. Cassandra's fingers trace the rim of her untouched mimosa, her smile gone, her authority a cracked veneer. She feels the whispers, not loud, but persistent, like a tide eroding her carefully sculpted image. Marcus steps into this kitchen, the stainless steel counters reflecting the last of the day's light. Javier, his coworker, leans against the sink, grinning. "You flipped the whole damn room, man." She's out there looking like she lost her keys. Marcus wipes his glasses, a ritual that grounds him, and exhales slowly. "Wasn't trying to flip anything," he says, his voice soft but firm. "Just did what she asked." Javier shakes his head, laughing, and that's why it hurt her. "You didn't even raise your voice." Marcus' lips twitch into a faint smile, but his mind is elsewhere, on his thesis, on the library at Emory, on the life he's building beyond these walls. Outside, the veranda hums with a new rhythm. Priya, the startup founder, pulls out her phone, drafting an email to a colleague about Marcus. "He's got something special," she murmurs to Klaus, who nods, his own phone buzzing with a reply from his firm's Atlanta office. "He's wasted here," Klaus says, his German accent clipped. "I've already sent his name to our recruitment team." Priya's eyes follow Marcus as he pours tea for an elderly couple, his movements calm, almost reverent. She feels a pang, not just of admiration, but of guilt for staying silent during Cassandra's taunts. She resolves to speak up next time, to be more like Marcus, who answered cruelty with competence. Evelyn Harris, the retired professor, watches from her table, her eyes warm with a pride that feels personal. She leans toward her daughter Lena, whispering, "He's the kind of man who changes things not because he wants to, but because he has to." Lena nods, her gaze lingering on Marcus, seeing the quiet strength her mother has always valued. Evelyn thinks of her own battles of boardrooms, where she was the only black woman, of moments when she too had to prove her worth with nothing but her mind. Marcus is a continuation, a reminder that dignity endures even in rooms designed to dismiss it. Cassandra feels this shift and hates it. She's used to being the sun pulling every orbit toward her. But Marcus has drawn the light, and the loss stings deeper than any boardroom defeat. She tries to rally, leaning toward a venture capitalist with a forced laugh. "Let's talk about that Miami expansion," she says, her voice too bright. The capitalist nods, but his eyes flick to Marcus, and Cassandra's jaw tightens. She knows the whispers will follow, her subtle, professional, but cutting. A colleague at a tech summit will mention that brunch incident, an investor will pause before signing a deal, citing cultural concerns. Her empire won't crumble, but it's marked, and for someone like her, that's a wound that festers. Marcus steps onto their veranda one last time, delivering a final pitcher of water. The elderly couple, grateful for his care, slips him a folded bill with a smile. "You're a good man," the woman says, her voice trembling with age. Marcus nods, his heart lifting. "Thank you, ma'am. Means a lot." As he turns, he catches Cassandra's eye. For a moment, their gazes lock hers, brittle, his steady. She raises her glass, a gesture that's half acknowledgement, half defiance, but says nothing. Marcus nods almost imperceptibly and walks away, his steps light as if shedding the weight of her scorn. In the employee locker room, Marcus hangs his apron, his fingers lingering on the worn fabric. The club has been a means to an end, rent books a bus pass when his old Civic broke down. But it's also been a crucible testing his resolve in ways Emory's libraries never could. He thinks of his thesis of the algorithms he's building to bridge linguistic divides of the undergrads he mentors, who remind him of himself at 18, hungry, underestimated, but unbroken. The Spanish note, the German, the French, they weren't just challenges. They were proof, not to Cassandra, but to himself that his mind is enough. The next morning, Marcus sits at his desk in Emory's library, a worn laptop humming beside a stack of syntax texts. His phone buzzes an email from Klaus's firm, Venz Global, inviting him to a meeting. Your insight at Fairhaven was remarkable, it reads. We'd like to discuss a role in our Atlanta office. Marcus reads it twice, his breath catching, then leans back, the weight of possibility settling in. It's not a job offer yet, but it's a door one he's earned by refusing to bow. He types a simple reply, I'd be honored, and closes his laptop, the library's quiet wrapping around him like a promise. Across town, Cassandra sits in her glass-walled office at Vionics. Staring at a LinkedIn profile, Marcus Tate Memoi, candidate computational linguistics, Emory University. His headshot is plain, his bio concise, focused on language as a bridge, always learning. No mention of the brunch, no trace of bitterness. She scrolls through his publications, his GitHub, each click a reminder of her miscalculation. She'd called her PR consultant that morning demanding a background check, but the report was clean, just a grad student with a part-time job and a mind sharper than her own. She closes the tab, her reflection stark in the dark screen, and wonders how one moment could cost so much. The days pass quietly, but the ripples spread. Marcus takes the meeting with Venz Global, his calm presence winning over the room. A contract follows, not flashy but enough to leave the club behind. He gives 2 weeks' notice, trains his replacement, and walks out of Fairhaven with a small card from Javier signed by the team. Don't forget us, Ninja, it reads. He smiles, tucking it into his pocket, and steps into the Atlanta dusk, the city's hum, a song of possibility. Cassandra carries on her speeches, polished her deals inked, but the air around her has changed. Colleagues pause before laughing. Associates hold back in meetings, their respect now conditional. The brunch didn't ruin her, but it marked her a quiet scar that lingers in whispers and hesitations. She drafts an email to Marcus one night, fingers hovering over the keys, I've been reflecting on what happened, but deletes it, the cursor blinking like a judgment. The lesson is hers to carry, a truth she can't spin, underestimating someone can cost more than pride. In a nation built on second chances, Marcus's story isn't loud. It's not a headline or a viral clip, though. Priya's tweet about the server who schooled a CEO gets a few thousand likes. It's a shift, quiet but seismic, in rooms where power is assumed but not always earned. Marcus moves into a modest apartment near his new office, its windows catching the park's green light. He mentors undergrads, telling them, your worth isn't your job, it's what you carry inside. His words echo Evelyn's wisdom, a thread connecting generations who face the same fight. Some stories end with applause, with cameras and crowds. Marcus's ends with a man walking home under Atlanta's starlit sky, his steps steady, his heart full. He's not the guy with the tray anymore. He's the one people remember. Not for shouting, but for standing tall when it mattered. In rooms where no one saved him a seat, he carved his own place. And that's the kind of power that lasts. End of story. Thanks for listening.